Hi, good morning, Tai Chi and Qigong practitioners. This video is titled Self-Care Through the Seasons. Forget the that's not part of the title. And today we're going to be discussing specifically the types of movement that are recommended in each, or more even the way that you should or might consider engaging your body throughout the seasons that based on knowledge of observation collected over thousands of years in traditional Chinese and Taoist medicine. And I've been very fortunate to be learning this information. Maybe I'll start a bit about me. My name is Timothy Motoyuki Prague. So you get some Japanese and European there. My mom's from Japan, grew up there in Hokkaido. My dad's from England, born in Luxembourg, a French-speaking country, and both somehow maybe seeking independence or diversity, made their way to the States independently, met in the University of Montana, and the rest is history. I was born, so I'm born American, but of these diverse heritages. And keeping that in mind, my journey has taken me both into the essence of Western culture, and in the last 10 years into the essence of Eastern culture. And I was just thinking about it this morning, and it's like, it didn't just start 10 years ago. It started in early childhood, watching these animated cartoons where they're working with their chi, and they're creating these little chi balls, and they're always training to become stronger. And not because they're trying to help out the world. Well, everyone has different motivations, but the main character is doing it for the joy. That's just his joy and passion, his training, becoming stronger. And in that process of pursuing his joy, he gets put in these positions where all of a sudden the world is depending on him. And he never, he has a family, he does it, he does what he does to help, but he's also in this lifelong process of just following his joy. And he just happens to lead him into places where he is needed. Yeah, that's a little bit of my background. I started, in a Western scientific background. My mom's been in kind of the Western scientific medical settings for a long time, organizing data, helping scientists organize their data, get funding for it, usually in some form of cancer research. So that's pretty biomedical. It's very, you don't get, I'm not saying it's outside of nature, because we're all, these are all expressions of nature, but it's very, as far as, we talk about hands-on medicine, And then, now we have these extremely precise devices injecting radiation, hopefully in the most cutting edge in a very targeted, specific way. And so, you have that imagery, and then you compare it with, what I'm doing in my clinic, and certainly this idea of using the body in Tai Chi and Qigong to harmonize with the healing forces within and with nature. So it's, you have these two poles. On the one hand, you have the yang, the left brain, these thinking mind to perfected to the extreme. Well, it's not perfect yet, but and then the yin, intuitive, listening mind, more compassionate, sensitive, heart-centered. And they both need each other to be balanced. In the old days, you have the hun, which is each of the organ systems were connected to these spiritual forces. They were, you have the one spirit, but then each of the organ systems were kind of one division of that. So the liver, or the wood energy in the body, was this, to have something called the hun. This is that ability of the mind to reach out and grab something. The yi, going with the spleen, or the earth element, was that ability to process it and think about it. The zhi, or the will, going with the kidneys, this water element, was that ability to work with it, embody it. This is what we're taking an idea and we're bringing ourselves into it. It's like, okay, working with it, and now we get into a state of flow. And then we moving up, into these other aspects. So the point of this video is not so much to get into the Chinese medicine physiology, but is to take, this idea of the seasons and look how they've been mapped. Even, we don't even need to get the theory. I'll just give it to you up front, and if you want to stay for the theory, great. But the fire goes with the heart. It's the season of summer. It's about opening. There's more warmth in the summer. Winter goes with the kidneys, the low back, but more even so the major joints, but mostly the hips, the knees, and the feet. And it's about stillness. What does cold make you do? It makes you still. So in the winter time, you every season you need to be engaging your body regularly. Some say, and I have found that at least a couple hours a day, particularly outside, is important. You do need probably another hour up there of upkeep, just making food, or taking a bath, or doing some level of hygiene upkeep as well. Working with water, it's very nourishing. You could be doing the dishes, that could count, right? So long as you're there, you're present, maybe you're listening to your feet. You're not trying to do so much, but you're making yourself satisfied with the body. In the winter time, you don't, you don't. Yeah, we'll come back to that. But the different seasons go with different tissues, tissue layers. So the springtime, the wood, is about the tendons and ligaments. The summertime is about the small connector muscles. Summer, heat, what does the heat do? It allows you to feel things with greater sensitivity. And so in that season, we're emphasizing more twisting movements, right? Really getting into those deeper layers. It's not that we don't have these in every season, but it's like summer is the time when nature is giving us that sensitivity. And so it's like, okay, now we're gonna emphasize these twisting motions that get to these small muscles. Earth, late summer, is the time of the larger muscle groups. Things are, they're not really cooling off, but they're starting to. But there's still, and maybe we're eating a lot more. There's abundant harvest, right? So now we're emphasizing the large muscle groups. Earth is digestion. It's the flesh and the muscles, specifically the larger muscle groups. So here you might be doing more of a horse stance or your squats. You're really emphasizing that that muscle building. Maybe you're starting to eat more, eating more of the abundant harvest at this time of year, or the horse stance is you're also kind of in a standing squat. You could use weight, you could put in the traditional martial arts, holding buckets of water on the elbows. But then you get into fall, which is about balance. It's a metal element. It's the lungs and large intestine, which what's that doing is taking in, letting go, taking in, letting go. In that process, seeing what is essential, what do you want to gather for winter, right? And so there again, there's this emphasis on stillness. Like if you like breathing exercises, this would be a good time to really focus, like increase the amount of breathing. Think of these lungs. The lungs go all the way to the bottom of your rib cage and on the back, right to the top of the kidneys. Again, that's also, what is the rib cage doing? It's protecting the lungs and other major organs. But if you can feel, the kidneys kind of begin on the back where the rib cage ends. It's very approximate. You can look it up. And the lungs go right to the top of the kidneys. There's a Chinese saying, the lungs, the kidney qi, the kidneys grasp the lung qi. And when you're and on top of the kidneys, you have these adrenal glands. And so when those are, you have adrenal fatigue, you drank too much coffee, and those are like blasted out, and now you have cold, low back pain. Your breathing is oftentimes very shallow. And so that kidney qi is not warming the bottom of the lungs to bring the energy back in. So you have to kind of do it manually, come back in, do your exercises, slow movement. Man, I can really talk. So let's see. How do we... maybe I think I'll piece together the, but anyway, so let's come back to the, so fall is breathing, and then winter is the bones, it's the marrow, it's the kidneys. Kidneys, very important organ. It's actually, they see the brain and the kidneys, the marrow inside of the spine. This is all water. This is the deepest part of you. Beyond the physical aspect, it's who you really are. Your gifts, your talents, these things that you were born with that you cannot change. Oh, maybe you can change them a little, but it's going to take a lot of hard work, because that stuff's in the body. very deep. It takes 1 day to change your mind, 30 days to change the emotions, the connections in the brain, 90 days to change the rhythms. These are the hormonal rhythms, blood chemistry, and it's like the mental emotional networks that you operate with, and 1 year for those changes to set into the body. And so that's, you talk about a habit, say 30 days to create a new habit, 90 days for it to start shifting things, a year. You got to keep at it. And ever more so important as we age, that consistency sends a message to the body that you're important, we're going to take care of you, and we're not dead yet. The body's being challenged, not so much by an overabundance of negativity, but just the right amount of challenge, right? So coming back to these seasons, we challenging the body, but it's going to look different every season. These seasons also have seasons of life. So in my lineage, it's a Taoist lineage, continually being imparted on me through my teacher Michael, who, again, going back thousands of years, mostly through oral transmission, but very much rooted in the teachings of Chinese medicine. And we're looking at life phases. So the 0 to 8 is the wood phase. This is rapid growth. 8 to 33, this is the fire phase. Again, body's still building up until then, right? And that's fire. What does it do? It's not stuck in one place. It keeps on moving, consuming fuel here, there. This is the time of self-exploration. You don't really know yourself enough to commit to a path. Most of society, it's like, you should know. What's your goal? What's your purpose in life? 18, you go to college. You got to decide what's your purpose in life. Or some people born into it. You're going to do the family business. It's like, okay, some people born and they know. Some people don't. And the Taoists would say it's natural not to know. A lot of Zen traditions also say by 30 you want to commit to a path. Those are all approximate. And so there is this transition where fire turns to ash and that becomes the earth. And that is the time where you know enough, you've explored enough, that you can then, commit to a path. So I'm going to come back into the exercises here, but this is a whole framework. When we talk about seasons, we're not just talking about the seasons of the year, we're talking about the seasons of life. And every season of life has a destiny. It's like, what is natural, how you get the most out of this for your spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical development. Health at every age, health at every size, they have that health at every age, it looks different. And you have seasons, types of people too. Some people more predisposed to this water element. They slower than the rest of the society. Maybe they're wiser too, but it takes more time. They have to go slow because they like to master things. It's this penchant for depth that's really important to them. And maybe they're always trying to find themselves because the rest of society, is not operating on their pace. But okay, so fire element, season of life, fire becomes ash, and now it becomes the earth. And at a certain point, you know enough about who you are that that you are able to and ready to commit to a path. It's like a career path, a home, building a home, building this nest egg. You're ready to go to work. If you don't figure that out, again, this fire, unprocessed fire, you end up having a midlife crisis, or people all of a sudden at age 50, they had kids at age 20, and they have a breakdown and they go off and live in the Bahamas for 10 years or leave their relationship and then, go do something completely different halfway across the world. That's the fire element. It's a need to be expressed. It doesn't have to be so extreme. It could be like, I'm going to start exploring a new hobby. I'm going to change my career. Something that allows me to explore who I am. And they say even certain things like menopause, the hot flashes, there's a saying, another Taoist teacher, a big guy in Chinese medicine, Jeffrey Yun, one of his positions is that, the hot flashes are the degree to which you're resisting your true self. And again, it's you going from childbearing age to, now what am I gonna produce? What am I gonna create, right? So fire becomes the earth. Earth is about stability, it's consistency. Again, it's these flesh and these muscles. I mean, you think of, earth and the mountain, this really is this stability. And what do the muscles do? They store sugar, they store energy. And you can think of, in the Chinese system, the digestive system and the flesh and the muscles. These are all one system. It's like how can you nourish yourself? The body. How are we nourishing the body? How direct is that connection? And it really is, on one hand, it's the practice of you are what you eat. And then on the other hand, it's, it's the recognition that you're more than that, because at a certain point of self-care, you can, there's flexibility. You can do whatever you want. You can eat whatever you want. It's not going to affect you much. It's not that you're not disciplined. You do have needs, right? You got to get, enough vegetables, nutrition, but it's that you're, and movement, and you're disciplined enough with that it doesn't really, all whatever you eat is being converted into usable fuel, and the rest is being detoxified pretty quickly. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have a strong baseline of nutrition. It just means that, if you want to eat the chocolate cake, you want to have the coffee, within reason, it doesn't really matter, because you have that strong baseline, right? And that's, that kind of flips, because it's very common in the natural medicines for people to take things out, or it's like it encourages an inner weakness. It's like, certain things, if you're celiacs and you have gluten intolerance, okay, some of this is really important. But oftentimes it's like, why do you have that sensitivity? Why do you have that, almost that intolerance. And a lot of it has to do with the strength of the digestive system. When you make that system stronger, a lot of these sensitivities go away. Um, Obviously, if you're overdoing it, taking things out really helps. But what I see is for a lot of people, they can um, go the opposite way, where now they're avoiding everything and their life has lost a certain level of quality and flexibility. It impacts their social dynamic, what they can eat, what they can't eat, what things they go out to. Oh, I can't have that drink, or not that you should, if you don't want it, you don't want it. And, what's more important is the social connection. Like, I get that. I'm not, I think there are ways to be limited and free, but I also think there are circumstances where, gosh, if only my system was stronger, I wouldn't have to think about these things so much. I wouldn't have to deal with these social barriers is not quite right, but just limitations. They could be a little bit less. So I'm going to close this here. Little chilly here. So that's the earth. Then we go to the metal element. This here. And the metal element is the lungs, it's the skin, it's the large intestine. Again, this is taking out, taking in, say the pure chi of heaven. This really is why, nature is important. You're outdoors, you're breathing things in. It's tough in a city. It is, it's tough. It's very tough to be healthy in the city. I mean, maybe that's where you take all these supplements and but the idea of the metal element, you're working the lungs, you're spending time breathing in the fresh air, and a lot of that stuff you don't really need. You're training the system to be pure. Metal is also about timing. It's about that precision, that sense of timing. The Chinese is 知觉, or lungs are the, let's say, 非觉, 相辅之官, 知觉出焉. The lungs are the prime minister, and they govern rhythms and regulations. The Chinese were very practical. As I've it's not that they didn't have immensely complicated tasks requiring great levels of complexity. How do you build these incredible palaces without knowledge of architecture? How do you build these 400 BC 64 bell sets, which operate according to principles of harmonics, that if you didn't have a certain composition of tin to iron to lead in the bells, it wouldn't produce this particular sound it did. You can't do that without a very advanced knowledge of chemistry. You can't build those things without a very advanced knowledge of architecture. And you have these medical textbooks, which are, I'll show you one today, 64 or more chapters, thousands of pages, that were still as simple as they could be because they were transcribed, carved into these bamboo slats meticulously. You had to be very sparing in what you said. Despite this complexity, there's a simplicity that runs through it, and yet still without sacrificing precision. And that's where these, the 5 elements, the 5 phases, the 12 organ systems, and the framework of 12, or even yin yang, they all fit together. It's like, how complex do we need to go in order to understand precisely what's going on here? For the Chinese, it's like you never really had to go more than 12, maybe 64, it's like, okay, is this, so body, it's like, okay, summer, winter, yang and yin. Yang expands, yin contracts. Spring, it's a little bit more yang. Yang is coming up from the earth, and you see that in the sprouting of things. And it's growing, and then it's rising up the atmosphere. So you have more, it's the earth is connecting, calling down the heavenly chi. You take out more sun, and so this is binary code. The inventor of binary code studied Chinese cosmology. He was influenced by it. He even expressed that his creation of binary code was influenced by a study of Chinese cosmology. Okay, spring has certain qualities. So then you get to the 5 elements, and you get more specific. And then you can say, well, there's a yang phase of spring and a yin phase of spring. And then you get even more specific, and you get further and further down. But, when you talk about medicine and disease, you have yang diseases, you have yin diseases. You get more specific. Well, this is a fire disease, have to do with the heart. Water disease have to do with the kidneys or the bones or the marrow. With this idea of storing, or with somehow the expression that connection blocked. So these are all, these are all pieces. So where were we? Metal phase. This is about the harvest. Think of metal, the scythe, you're gathering, getting ready for winter. Metal, what are the trees doing? They're letting go of their leaves, right? And they're, letting go. It's like, okay, letting go of what I don't need. They're not like actively pushing the leaves off. No, they're just being themselves, right? And it's in that process of being themselves, I'm gonna just sneeze here, that the leaves fall off, and then it's just them, these barren things. Yet still, if you touch them in the wintertime, you're not, there's still warmth, there's still life inside. We're just not seeing it on the outside. It's not outwardly expressed, it's inwardly expressed. And so that's what nature is encouraging. Sorry about that. Well, if you were asleep, now you're not. And that's really what nature is encouraging us to do. Um, it's not about doing. In the wintertime, it's not about doing, it's about being. The season of, going back to the life seasons, the season of metal is from 58 to 83. Um, it's a harvest. Retirement or metal is refinement. Again, that's you've gotten clear on who you are. You've done the work, and now it's like, okay, the work is clear. Let's just fine tune here. A little bit of refining, this and that, and this and that. So, you might be teaching. Metal is also gold. It's, enjoying your retirement, but you might be teaching, writing books, spending time with family, sharing your wisdom. That's what, the bane of American and US culture is, maybe it's just modern Western culture, is people, this family structure has fallen apart. Older people become older, I don't know how to describe it, become a burden. It's like, oh, I got to take care of dad, and his health is declining, and now he's on dialysis. It's like, and you think of this idea of burden, it's like, how do you as a human become heavy? Not like, it's like the weight of the world is crushing you. And oftentimes for most folks in the older generation, it's not that they, it's not that they become weak, it's that their desire for life, it's like what am I going to do with my retirement? There wasn't a plan. There wasn't how do I give back? I'm going to share my wisdom, but in former times it was easy. The older people were the heads of the village. Their wisdom was honored. It was being passed on. Now it's like they're isolated, stuck at home, far away from their kids. And that knowledge, that wisdom, it hasn't found an outlet. So what happens, that gold, that inner gold, it just becomes heavy. It sinks. It starts to crush them. Not because it's bad, it's just not being expressed. And so then, it's like everything, it just compresses inwards. So the question for this life phase really is, how am I going to share my wisdom? Yes, I want to enjoy my retirement, but it's not that all of a sudden I leave the world and forget about it. It's like, no, there's still work to do. And, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be much. Doesn't even have to be that challenging. It's more about enjoying, the process of giving all of that wisdom that you've cultivated. Hopefully, there's some there, right? In a gentle way. This 58, you starting to get more breaking down hormones than there are building up hormones. Say actually, around 45, that's when it starts to happen. You're over the hill, and now the body's, you have to work really hard to upkeep the body. And that's where this idea of being engaged with the body in a mindful way for at least 2 hours a day, ideally outside if you can. Those elements are really important. it does provoke resistance. It's not easy. It's just what's necessary. And so that's, that's the basic requirement of having a body. And then there's a spiritual component of, okay, I'm healthy, I'm taking care of my body, I'm centered. What do I do with that? And that comes back to the spiritual idea of, well, that inner gold, this is the metal element, 58 to 83, and what do I do with this gold? How do I honor it? And that, again, that destiny, the metal phase is that self-refinement, and how do I share this wisdom? Unburden my wisdom, hand this burden off to other people so I don't become the burden. That is my unexpressed wisdom. The movement piece, it's, if that's not there, nutrition piece, if that's not there, then it's going to be hard to see clearly what to do next. But, start working on these pieces and the rest becomes clear. It's just natural, right? Where are we at? Seasonally, I think we talked about this flesh and muscles, larger muscle groups. So we're really, doing more, maybe emphasizing more resistance type movements. And then we go into the winter phase. And, maybe I should spend a bit more time on that, really, these are broader push-ups, planks, squats, these large muscle groups, the thighs, the calves, the shoulders, this low back. We want to work those out. It can be a bit more linear. In the fire phase, time of summer, we're getting into all of those small connector muscles. And again, it's not that we're not, doing all of these other practices. It's not that we're not taking time to notice and, just be with what insights and the spirit that comes in. That's the water, right? Using the body as a way to, engaging the body just enough so that we're present with the body. And it's in that presence that then the spirit comes in. And that's really that light of awareness that then is lifting up the rest of our life. So this is where the practice of self-cultivation really is you're cultivating your spirit. So that actually takes us into the water element. Again, the metal element, season of metal, is breathing, refocusing. We might spend more time just noticing the breath. We might sit, or as we're walking, just notice the breath. Bring the awareness to the breath. When we're doing our exercises or our crunches or our planks, or our awareness is on the breath, and specifically on the lungs, filling up the lungs all the way. Again, also large intestine here. Want to make sure we're getting enough minerals, enough water, warm water. Fall practice could really be, you could do this any season, but really you could spend a lot more time sipping on some warm beverage, and just observing, being with that warm beverage, right? Herbal tea, herbal medicine, maybe. The winter then, as I mentioned, it's 83 to 108. And as my teacher said, this is preparing for death and all of eternity. And that's really, in the Taoist traditions, a lot of Chinese traditions, everyone has different beliefs about the afterlife, what happens next. Um, do we just go to heaven and that's it? Heaven, there for eternity. And or this is a reincarnation, what's that about? Is there freedom? Is there a choice? If we realize there's one, and do I get to choose? Okay, do I want to come back to the earth, still have these, lessons I'm working on, and, I want to around two, I want to go to this, other reality where people have 5 arms and the 5th arm grows out of the nose, or 5th limb, and I'm supported by that. I don't know. And there are some interesting perspectives that that's where my predisposition is. There's some level of freedom. Now I don't know for sure. But that's a talk for another day. There is a constancy, doing these practices. There's a constancy of self, and I would say a constancy of spirit that is cultivated. It's like, okay, when that spirit comes in to enliven the rest of our life, there is a place where, okay, now we've brought that light into our lives, and now we still cultivating that. Where does the rest of that light go? And this in Taoism is the idea of a spiritual fetus. Maybe it's called a crystal or light body in other traditions. But it's kind of, it's where that extra, you're building that awareness of your constancy, that constant eternal self, that's bigger than just this lifetime. So you could believe in it. You don't have to. You can do more research, but in this lifetime, by working with the body, we're maintaining that awareness. We're telling the body that it's alive. And again, in wintertime, you don't have to do much. What I did. One example the other day, I had 40 minutes, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this most effectively. And I did, my mind is like, okay, 20 push-ups. I went outside, I did 20 push-ups, some side planks. And I was gonna go on a walk too. But by the time I, did those push-ups, I took breaks. I did each one very slowly with integrity. I used my fists. And my awareness was engaged in my body the whole time. And I was, I was just sitting in the snow, and it's like, didn't have to do much. But that's the winter practice, as my teacher Michael says, in winter you only have to move enough to get your chi to the hands, just to the surface. And so it's not about what you do want is that total body engagement. But you don't need to do more than you have to in order to get there. Winter, again, is time of conservation. If anything, you can call it a nothing practice. And so, part of the time I was doing those push-ups, the other I was just sitting there receiving, just sitting in the snow, receiving. And then as my thoughts became, they ever got stagnant or stuck, or as if, I shouldn't be thinking about that, that's not, I've taken a detour. Like you can tell, there's like thinking that's helping and then thinking that's just random junk. You don't need it. And then you re-engage the body and you get into this flow. And, that's where we talk about what is the purpose of exercise and movement. And part of it, you do want to set your intention to pay attention to the body. But the other part, we want to, we recognize that the purpose of movement is to make who we are better, and maybe even use that as a vehicle for bringing that awareness, that kind of enlightened awareness. All the cells are happy, they're communicating, there's light there, and directing that towards our life. And so that's really, and that recognition of the purpose of movement and time in nature, and knowing that, part of engaging with that is having some sort of plan, some sort of movement plan, but then being flexible and recognizing that the plan is there, 20 push-ups, an hour walk, to help create this physical, holistic engagement, such that the body can be clear to then receive the spirit, or the clear, the clarity of mind, if you don't like that term. So that is the recognition of winter. Again, water gives rise to wood, and you're back in the springtime. Spring is the time of the tendons and the ligaments. These are the things that connect the whole body, right? Spring, it's more about stretching and long walks. There's a passage I'm going to read you in a moment where you're doing these long walks through the courtyard. But before we do that, let's just take about 1.5 minutes. We're just going to sit. It's a winter practice, so we're just going to sit and we're just going to breathe. And you can put your hands on your stomach. And we're just going to sit and notice. In the Qigong, you're typically breathing in and out through the nose. That's how we're meant to breathe. If you need to incorporate the mouth, you can. But if you can do the nose, that's great. The lungs go, I think we talked, all the way to the bottom of the ribs. But when they expand, they press out the lower belly. And that's where all of our organ systems are. And so the expansion of the lungs is not only assisting the heart in circulation, that's why it's called the prime minister, right? The heart is the emperor. Oxygenating the blood, letting go of toxins. But it's also massaging all of the other internal organs. So that's why that deeper breathing is so vital and important, right? We're gonna start just take about a minute, and then we'll close up with a passage. So you can either keep your eyes gently open or closed, and we're just going to notice our breathing and try to expand the lower belly on the inhale and watch it deflate on the exhale. Good. And coming back. See, I already feel a difference here. Good. So I'm going to grab a book. It's called the Huangdi Neijing, or the Yellow Emperor's Inner Classic. It's one of the major tomes of Chinese medicine assembled over 2,000 years ago in the Han Dynasty of China, but it's, by that time it was already a very well developed system, the teachings of Chinese medicine and how to live in harmony with the seasons and really the nature of medicine in general. And I think it would be appropriate to end there, since chapter 1, maybe it's chapter 2, it's how to live in harmony with the seasons. It is a translation, and so it doesn't get into the nuances, since the Chinese characters are symbolic, holographic, they have layers of meaning, and it typically even rhymes. Everything was a mnemonic device to help you remember it. This was a beauty, they rhymed, they had imagery, but we're going to do our best. I think the translator, Paul Unschuld, has done a pretty good job. Let's see this book here. Well, the last thing the Chinese noticed, and this was mostly based on geographic region, but they did notice that you have like 5 types of people. Different regions created different body types, different diet and different temperaments. Cold environments, what does it make you do? It makes you cold, but also bond together. Very strong familial relationships, maybe more stern on the outside, suffers more from internal heat diseases because maybe they stayed inside too much in the wintertime, what have you. Go deeper, water. We talked a little bit about this, so let's just, that's for another day. It's the 5 kinds of people. And let's see here. So, the 3 months of spring, they denote effusion and spreading. Heaven and earth together generate life, and the myriad beings flourish. Go to rest late at night and rise early. Move through the courtyard with long strides. Dishevel the hair and relax the physical appearance. Thereby cause the mind to orient itself on life. Give life and do not kill. Give and do not take. Reward and do not punish. This is the correspondence with the chi of spring, and it is the way to nourish life. Spring, encouraging. The 3 months of summer, they denote opulence and blossoming. The chi of heaven and earth interact, and the myriad beings bloom and bear fruit. Go to rest late at night and rise early. Never get enough of the sun. Let the mind have no anger. Stimulate beauty and have your elegance perfected. Cause the chi to flow away, as if that what you loved were located on the outside. This is the correspondence with the chi of summer and the way to nourish growth. The 3 months of autumn, they denote taking in and balance. The chi of heaven becomes tense, the chi of earth becomes bright. This is the yang descending into the yin. Go to rest early and rise early, get up together with the chicken. Let the mind be peaceful and tranquil, so as to temper the punishment carried out in autumn. Collect the spirit chi and cause the autumn chi to be balanced. Do not direct your mind to the outside and cause the lung chi to become clear. This is corresponding with the chi of autumn, and it is the way to nourish gathering. The 3 months of winter, they denote securing and storing. The water is frozen and the earth breaks open. Do not disturb the yang chi. Go to rest early and rise late. You must wait for the sun to shine. Let the mind enter a state as if hidden, as if you had secret intentions, as if you had already made gains. Avoid cold and seek warmth, and do not allow sweat to flow away through the skin. This would cause the chi to be carried away quickly. This is corresponding with the chi of winter, and it is the way to nourish storage. Passage goes on to say what going against the chi of the seasons does, including the organ systems that it will harm, and the types of diseases you would see in the opposing season if one were to go against the season. But that's it for today. I think you probably have a deeper understanding of these seasonal energies, or 5 phases, 5 elements. And when we talk about seasons, we're not just talking about the seasons of the year, but really the seasons as they manifest through a person's life. And organ systems, we could go deeper, and emotions. This framework is a way of understanding, I think we've discussed it, how everything is connected in a both simple, yet in a simple way without sacrificing precision. So good. Let me know your questions in our upcoming classes. Watch this video, rewatch it. It's intended as a teaching. These teachings were passed to me many, many, many years ago. They've lived on in me and become mature. It's now time for me to start passing them on. I'm always embodying them at a deeper level. And I think for you, you can start by just observing them and if they're true, how they're true in your own life. And come back to this in a year and see what more you might glean. So good. I look forward to seeing you soon. I look forward to seeing you in class and to your questions, comments, observations, and insights. Take good care. Until next time.